let's say you have users complaining that they're not able to send traffic off their local subnet. You ping, the ping fails, you perform a trace route, it fails. What's the reason why they may not be able to leave their local subnet? Well, how do you leave your local subnet? You send your traffic to your default gateway. If you don't have the appropriate IP address configured for the default gateway, then you don't know who the default gateway is, and therefore you won't send the traffic to the default gateway. So if your clients are not configured with the correct virtual IP address that is used for the VRRP group, then your clients won't be able to exit the subnet. So it's all about checking the client now in this particular case, looking at the output of IP config and verifying that the default gateway has been configured correctly, whether it's a static configuration or whether it's via a DHCP server. However, what about a situation whereby the client's traffic is going through the wrong device? What do I mean by that? Well, let's say in our VRRP group, we have a master and we have a backup. Let's check DSW2, show VRRP. Who's the master? It's DSW2. Who's the backup? Show VRRP. It's DSW1. If we go to our client and we do a trace, who is currently servicing this client? It's DSW1. You see that? 10.1.165, that's DSW1's IP address on their interface. Let's look at that. Show run interface VLAN 20. 10.1.1.65. So the traffic's going through DSW1. Why is that? It is the backup. Look at that. It's the backup. So why does PC1 send its traffic to the backup VRRP router? Think about it. Think about it. Because it's configured with the IP address of 10.1.1.65 as its default gateway. We did not configure it with the appropriate IP address, which should be 10.1.1.66. That's what it should be configured as. So there's our situation right now. That's the problem. The client's not configured correctly. So we go to the client and we issue the command ipconfig, and we'll see that the default gateway is 10.1.1.65. So I believe this client is statically configured right now. So we'll open up the properties, TCP IP properties. We'll go down to the IP properties. Right there, 65. Let's change it to 66 instead. So by changing it to 66 and then reissuing our trace, we'll see that we're going through DSW2. Now, what if DSW2 fails? Is this truly going to work for us? Let's go to interface VLAN 20. VLAN 20, shut down the interface. We'll see that DSW1 becomes the master here shortly, which it has. Go back to PC4, and now traffic's going through DSW1. So it's working as we expect it to, but the problem was not related to VRRP in this case. The problem was related to the client. We gave the client the wrong IP address. So double check the IP addressing, both on the devices, the routers. Is the virtual IP address configured appropriately for the group on all of the routers in that group? And is the client configured with the IP address of the group, not of the real router interfaces? If it's configured with the real router interfaces, we'll have connectivity. In this case, the symptom said the client can't send traffic off its local subnet. Well, that's if it's configured with an IP address that doesn't exist on the routers. But in my example, I showed you that the IP address did exist. It was the IP address of DSW1. So by checking ipconfig, comparing that to the IP addresses that are being used for the VRRP group, then you'll be able to confirm whether that client is configured correctly or not.